The night of the accident was one of those nights that people never forget. A city alive with lights, the streets buzzing with laughter and neon, and yet in the middle of that chaos, Yu Menglong's life would be changed forever. The accident itself shook fans, shook the industry, and left people questioning everything, especially the people who surrounded him that night. Were they really his friends? Or were they the kind of companions that only looked good in the spotlight but disappeared when the lights went out? Imagine it. Yu Menglong, fresh from a long stretch of projects, finally taking a breather. His life, like a never-ending carousel of cameras, scripts, and flashing lights, needed moments of pause. That evening, he wasn't alone. He had company, those who laughed with him, drank with him, teased him, and promised to always have his back. But the question that still lingers in everyone's mind is this. When the world flipped upside down in an instant, were they really there for him? The restaurant they had gathered in was crowded, filled with the smell of sizzling food and the faint clink of glasses. Yu Menglong, wearing his signature easy smile, leaned back in his chair while stories flew across the table. These were people he had known for years, some from the entertainment world, some from his early days, and a few who had come into his life through the magnetic pull of fame. The laughter was genuine, or at least it sounded that way. To an outsider, it would seem like a group of friends bonded by loyalty and love. But under the surface, things weren't as glossy as they appeared. Some of those friends were the type who cheered loudest when the camera was on, but whose eyes were always scanning the room for someone more important. Others were people who seemed harmless, yet their silence spoke louder than any word. They were there, but not truly there. And then there were the genuine ones, the rare few who didn't care about his fame, who weren't dazzled by his popularity, but who simply enjoyed his company for the man he was. The mix of these personalities created a fragile balance, like a glass teetering at the edge of a table, waiting for the slightest push to shatter. That push came in the form of the accident. The night air was cool as they left, the city's hum following them like background music. Some of the friends urged him to take it easy. Others waved off caution, caught in their own laughter and distractions. They piled into cars, into the night, into a sequence of choices that none of them would ever forget. And then, metal against metal, a screeching roar, the kind of sound that slices into the soul. The world spun, and in that instant, the glitter of friendship was tested. What did the friends do? This is where the truth of friendship was laid bare. Some froze, paralyzed by fear, their promises evaporating in the smoke. Some pulled out their phones first, thinking of news, of headlines, of the storm that would follow, instead of the man bleeding before them. But others, the real ones, threw caution to the wind. They ran to his side, their hands trembling as they tried to keep him conscious, their voices breaking as they called out his name, not caring who was watching. Those were the ones who didn't care if their clothes were ruined with blood, or if the flashing lights of ambulances painted them guilty in the eyes of gossip. They cared only for him. The cruel reality was that in a moment like that, you learn everything about the people around you. It's not about who raises a glass with you at a party, but who kneels beside you when the glass shatters. And that night, Yu Menglong saw both sides of the coin. He saw the so-called friends who whispered excuses later, who avoided calls when the hospital bills rolled in, who were suddenly too busy when the headlines burned hot. And he saw the real ones, the ones who stayed, who defended his name when rumors swirled, who sat beside his bed when the nights were long and uncertain. It's haunting to think how quickly masks fall off when life is at stake. The accident didn't just break metal, it shattered illusions. Fans who had always assumed that every smiling face around him was loyal began to question. Were these people really his safety net? Or were they using him as a ladder to climb higher? And more importantly, what does friendship mean in a world where fame attracts shadows as much as light? Let's not forget the aftermath. The so-called friends who had been silent suddenly resurfaced when the worst was over, when cameras were ready again, when it was safe to be seen. They crafted stories of how close they were, how worried they had been, painting themselves as loyal companions. But the truth was written in Yu Menglong's eyes. He knew who had held his hand when everything was dark, and who had only shown up when the lights were bright again. The hospital room became a test of loyalty. While his body healed, His mind replayed every second of that night. Who ran toward him? Who turned away? Who called for help? Who thought only of themselves? The walls of that sterile room echoed with the reality that not all friendships are built on truth. Some are built on convenience, on clout, on fragile threads that snap at the first sign of trouble. And yet, in the ashes of that night, there was a strange beauty too. For though he lost the illusion of some friendships, he also discovered the diamonds hidden among the dust. The ones who stood by him proved that real friends don't shine only in good times. They glow even brighter in the dark. They became his shield against rumors, his comfort during recovery, and his anchor when the waves of uncertainty threatened to drown him. The accident was brutal, but it was also revealing. It revealed who Yu Menglong's true circle was, who truly cared for him as a person, not as a star. And it revealed who only wanted to ride the wave of his success without being there when the tide crashed. So, were they good or bad friends? The truth is both. Some were the kind of friends anyone would be blessed to have, the ones who stand in front of you when danger comes, who would trade their safety for yours without a second thought. Others were the kind who disappear in the storm, who prove that not everyone who laughs with you loves you, and not everyone who claps for you wants you to succeed. In the end, the accident wasn't just a moment of tragedy. It was a mirror that showed Yu Menglong, his fans, and the world the real faces behind the smiles. And that is perhaps the most haunting, most powerful outcome of all. Because sometimes, you have to lose everything for a moment just to see who was truly yours all along. That night will never be forgotten. Not by Yu Menglong, not by the friends who stayed, not by the ones who left, and certainly not by the fans who watched in shock and prayed for his recovery. It's a reminder that life can change in seconds. And in those seconds, the truth about the people around you is revealed with a clarity sharper than any blade. And so, as the world moves on and as Yu Menglong continues to heal and rise again, one lesson lingers in the minds of those who followed his story. Fame may bring many to your table, but only true friendship will remain when the lights go out. The accident itself was only a moment, a flash of chaos. But the truth of who his friends really were stretched far beyond that single instant. To understand whether they were good or bad, you have to picture the moments in slow motion, the seconds before, during, and after, that revealed the true nature of the people around Yu Menglong. The evening had been painted with laughter, the kind of laughter that echoes loud in restaurants and makes strangers smile even when they don't know the joke. Yu Menglong sat at the center, his easy charm filling the space like music. Around him were faces he trusted, or thought he trusted. One leaned close to whisper encouragement about his next project. Another raised a glass in exaggerated celebration. And yet, there was a shadow in the way some of them looked at him, a gleam that wasn't friendship but envy, as though his success was a flame they wanted to steal a spark from. When they left the restaurant, the city wrapped them in its glow. Neon lights flickered like broken stars above them, and the night air was crisp enough to make every breath feel like glass. Some of the friends were cautious, urging him to take it slow. "Menglong, don't push yourself, it's late," one murmured. But others, careless and wrapped in the heat of their own laughter, waved it off. "He's fine. He's always fine," they said, as if immortality was something fame had given him. Then it happened. Tires screeched, metal twisted, and time fractured into 1,000 shards. The sound was deafening, like the universe itself crying out. When the world stilled, smoke filled the air, the bitter smell of fuel and fear choking everyone present. Yu Menglong lay there, caught between consciousness and the pool of darkness. And around him, the truth of his friends revealed itself in the most unfiltered way possible. One friend bolted instantly, eyes wide, muttering something about not wanting to be involved. They disappeared into the night, their footsteps fading faster than the wail of sirens. Another stood frozen, clutching their phone, not to call for help but to capture the scene, as if the tragedy of their friend was nothing more than a piece of gossip to pass along. Their hands trembled, not out of concern, but out of excitement for the chaos they could share. And then there were the real ones, the ones who dropped everything, their own safety forgotten. They ran to Yu Menglong, calling his name with desperation, kneeling on the asphalt with tears stinging their eyes. One pressed their jacket against a wound, their hands slick with blood but refusing to pull away. Another screamed at bystanders to call an ambulance faster, their voice breaking into hoarse cries. Their eyes weren't on the cameras, weren't on their own fears. They were locked entirely on him, willing him to stay, willing his heart to keep beating. In that moment, the difference between good and bad friends became painfully clear. A good friend doesn't measure risk before acting. A good friend doesn't freeze when it's inconvenient. A good friend doesn't vanish when the smoke is still rising. A good friend kneels in the dirt, cries through their panic, and chooses you over themselves. As the sirens grew louder, something even more telling happened. The so-called friends who hadn't helped at all began to adjust their stories. I tried to help, but I didn't know what to do, one stammered later, though everyone knew they had stood frozen. I went to get help, another lied, though the truth was they had fled into the shadows. Meanwhile, the real ones stayed behind even when the flashing red and blue lights cast suspicion over everyone present. They endured the questions, the accusations, the weight of flashing cameras that showed up almost as fast as the ambulance. They stayed not because it was easy, but because loyalty doesn't ask for convenience. The hospital hours stretched long into dawn. The so-called friends had already vanished, sending shallow messages of hope is okay, but not showing their faces. But the real ones? They sat in stiff chairs, their eyes red from crying, their hearts pounding each time the door to the emergency room swung open. They refused to leave, whispering prayers into the sterile air. Yu Menglong, when he opened his eyes days later, saw exactly who was there. Not the ones who clinked glasses the loudest, not the ones who posed beside him in group selfies, not the ones who bragged about being in his circle. He saw the tired faces of those who had stayed awake for him, who had held his hand when he was unconscious, who had spoken his name into the silence to keep him tethered to life. So, were those friends good or bad? The answer was written in the way they acted when it mattered most. Some were bad, very bad. The kind of people who take and take until there's nothing left. The kind of people who only want the glow of your light but abandon you in the dark. But others were good, so good it hurt. The kind of people who prove that friendship is not about laughter in bright rooms, but about loyalty in the shadows of disaster. And that is the haunting truth of the night of Yu Menglong's accident. It was not just about survival. It was about revelation, about seeing the masks fall, about knowing, once and for all, who really deserved to stand beside him as he healed, and who had only ever been standing there for themselves. For Yu Menglong, the accident may have scarred him physically, but it also purified his circle. Fame had blurred the lines for so long. Everyone wanted to be his friend. But that night drew a sharp, unforgiving line between the genuine and the false. And though the pain of betrayal lingers, so does the strength of knowing who truly belongs in his life. Because in the end, friendship is not proven in words. It is proven in fire, in blood, in fear, in the moments when life itself hangs by a thread. That night, Yu Menglong discovered who would hold that thread with him, and who would let it snap. And with that, dear viewers, what do you think? Were Yu Menglong's friends truly good? Or did the accident reveal the dark truth that many were only there for convenience? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you believe. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping stories like this one. Your support helps us bring you deeper, more emotional, and more eye-opening content every single time.